What if the difference between someone encountering Jesus this Easter and missing him entirely comes down to one moment? It's not the sermon, it's not the worship set, it's not even the service itself. It's a conversation, a simple invitation, a spirit-timed, courage-filled moment where someone steps across a threshold they've been standing near for weeks. And here's the tension most believers live in. They don't struggle with caring about the people around them, they struggle with the timing. They move too soon and it feels like pressure. They wait too long and the moment just seems to pass. They speak out of obligation and maybe it rings hollow. Or they stay silent out of fear and try to call it wisdom. But what if the Holy Spirit has already been working? What if 6 weeks ago, when we began praying, we began to soften the ground? The Holy Spirit began to soften ground that looked hard. What if the conversations and compassion for the last 2 weeks have been opening up something in a person that they themselves don't yet have language for? Well, we're 2 weeks before Easter, and this is where everything converges. And today, we're going to help you and your leaders recognize that moment, discern it, and step into it with the boldness that it deserves. And it's right here, right now, and only on the Five Gifts podcast.
You're listening to the Five Gifts Podcast, a weekly show designed to equip leaders in the Spirit-filled church. I'm Bruce Ritter, and along with my co-host Charles Russell, we offer insights for leading the local church in the fullest expression of Jesus. If you're interested in learning more about practical theology, the gifts of the Spirit, and spiritual disciplines, this is the show for you. Welcome to the Five Gifts Podcast.
Welcome back to the Five Gifts Podcast. My name is Charles Russell. I'm here today with my fantastic co-host, Bruce Ritter. This is Season 3, Episode 11, Part 4 of our 5-episode series on planning an Easter service through the lens of strategic apostolic leadership and evangelistic mobilization.
Hey, it's great to be with everyone after the first weekend of March Madness. And believe me, if you're a Tar Heel fan, things are quite mad right now. But hopefully we'll see some changes if you're a member of Tar Heel Nation. If not, well, we're glad that you're here for the podcast. Obviously, we come together over things that are a lot more important maybe than basketball and sports. And so we're here to talk about, Charles, I think today, maybe one of the most pivotal moments in this series when we talk about the invitation. But how are you doing today?
Well, I'm like you. I'm licking my wounds. All of us Tar Heel fans, but like you said, let's move past the pain, and let's talk about the urgent and important things that really matter in life. And I'm doing good, Bruce. This is really that's a great word, critical time. A part of this process that we're talking about in moving toward Easter. Now, again, the timing of this series is an evangelistic process toward Easter. But our hope is that churches will take this process and really massage this and create a culture of evangelism, so that you're doing this process 3 to 4 times in a year. And so we're just trying to establish a pattern and model a pattern that is not only great toward Easter, but again, 3 or 4 kind of big days throughout the year, um, that really helps cultivate a culture of evangelism, cultivates evangelists in the church. I think for the American church, a lot of our focus is on outreach, and outreach is wonderful. We're trying to get back to the mandate of personal evangelism, and so we've talked a lot about different things, but the invitation is key today, and there's a lot of fear and trepidation around the invitation. So hopefully we can bring some clarity to that, and hopefully we can kind of remove some of the pressure of what the invitation looks like. And so, if everybody's ready, I think let's jump in, let's get started, and kind of figure out what invitation looks like in this evangelism process. So let's kind of take stock of where we are in this 6-week journey again in this conversation toward Easter. So 6 weeks out, excuse me, your evangelists have identified their four. Again, these are the four people within their relational network who are spiritually disconnected, but still relationally accessible. So, at 5 weeks out, you've begun fasting and praying, and we're praying these what we call the six kingdom realities. And so, we're also discerning receptive gates, where where the Spirit is already at work in each person's life. At 4 and at 3 weeks out, your evangelists have moved from intercession now into incarnation. In other words, initiating genuine conversation, releasing acts of kindness, acts of compassion, and beginning to build the kind of relational trust that makes an invitation truly mean something. So now we're 2 weeks out, and this episode is about what all of that has been building toward. We call this the invitation strategy. But before we get tactical, let's try to frame this correctly if we can, because the goal of everything that we've been doing in this series is not about getting people into seats. This is all about reuniting lost sons and daughters with their Father. That's the heartbeat of the evangelistic gift. It's not a drive toward metrics, but what it is a spirit compelled urgency that is rooted in the conviction that people are not projects, time is not neutral, and readiness is not random. It is revealed. So today, as we cover three things, and they're how to discern where each of your four actually are spiritually, how to extend an invitation that is genuinely aligned with that readiness, and then finally, how this personal work multiplies into something systemic across your congregation.
Yeah, and before we talk about how to invite, we have to talk about when, because one of the most common mistakes, I think, when it comes to evangelism, is not a failure of courage. It really is a failure of discernment. And if you don't train people in your church, your evangelists, so to speak, to read where someone actually is, they will either force the fruit before it's ready or stand at the edge of the harvest and wait too long. Charles, I got to tell you, we're in the midst of this process in our church, and yesterday we encourage people to be available to give themselves to the Lord, to believe for His fresh works through their lives. Of course, we've been working on this for a few weeks now, but now we're at the moment of making the invitation, and I likened it to a step we took 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. And I call it standing in someone's future. And I just to set this up, I did some reading, and I'm not a stargazer, but I do happen to know that one of the brightest stars that we can see at night is the star Regulus. It's about 79 light years from Earth. And if you count that distance, as we look at that, as we look up in the sky and see that, we're seeing light that's 79 years old, light that began emanating, at least what we're seeing in that moment, that was emanating 79 years ago. And so what we've been doing, I think, is preparing. Our light started shining 5, 6 weeks ago, at least in this process, and so we're at a point now where people begin to see something that feels new to them, but it's something that's already been working in you as you've been praying, as you've been looking and discerning and looking for ways to serve and be present incarnationally as an evangelist. You're at that moment. What's been a process for you is now the moment in someone's present, and so you began working toward this weeks ago. So we're at the point where we're discerning a person's readiness. Now, not everyone is in the same place at the same time, and the spiritual work of these last 6 weeks has been in part about moving people along the continuum without forcing the pace. And here's how we help evangelists, personal evangelists, identify where their four are right now. And the first stage is what we call the internal seeker. And that's someone who is thinking, they're wondering, they're contemplating, quietly observing, but they haven't said anything out loud yet. Something is shifting them in them internally, but maybe it hasn't surfaced in conversation yet. And so if your evangelist senses someone is here, the instruction is simple. Don't rush it. Continue the relationship, continue the prayer, continue being present. Pressure at this stage can actually harden what God is in the process of softening. So the most important thing you can do for an internal seeker right now is simply remain a safe, consistent presence in their life. Continue to be the friend that you've been all along. That's the internal seeker. But what about the external seeker? What's the shift there? We might call this the second stage. And these aren't hard and fast stages, but we can clearly see characteristics of this where something has begun to change in the external seeker. They've begun verbalizing some of their internal thoughts. They're asking questions. They're opening up about things that they struggle with. They're expressing genuine curiosity about faith or meaning or what life is built on. And this is a significant shift. And when your evangelist needs to recognize it, this is the moment that recognition needs to happen. Because it's this stage the strategy changes. When internal thoughts become verbal questions or comments, then you want to begin to think about your testimony becoming visible, verbal. That's where you start sharing your testimony naturally. That's where you begin to speak about your faith. You don't make it a presentation, but you introduce spiritual language in a way that feels like conversation rather than instruction. And yes, at this stage, an invitation is appropriate. But discernment still matters. Not every external seeker is ready for the same kind of big ask. Some need more time, one more week of relationship before the invitation lands right. Now, the third stage is the convicted seeker. This is when you're here, man, you're going to know it. This person is openly aware of their need for God. They talk about making spiritual decisions. They talk about brokenness without being prompted. You find them to be responsive to spiritual truth in a way that goes beyond just some intellectual curiosity. Something in them is really beginning to lean in. And so at this stage, the framework shifts entirely. The delay is no longer wisdom. Delay becomes a missed moment. When someone is here, that's where the evangelistic gift begins to activate with urgency, not pressure, but clarity. And so the Holy Spirit has already done the heavy work. And remember, you're at the moment here because you've been praying for this moment. You've been serving and showing up for this moment to happen. And so what this person needs now is someone with the courage to say clearly and warmly, I believe this is your moment. And so train your evangelists in these three stages. Ask them to identify honestly where each of their four currently sits. Charles, we don't have the graphic, but I'm always encouraging people to note the Ingalls scale because not everyone's ready to close the sale. People move forward in faith in steps, and so these are three steps. I think you're going to see at those moments that they're getting closer to responding to the activity of the Holy Spirit in their life. Again, those internal questions, those internal discussions they're having in their mind. Nothing's been verbalized yet, but there's something happening internally. Then those external moments where questions begin to happen, comments are made, and then that open stage, we call it the convicted seeker. They are actively engaged in thinking about a spiritual decision. And so because the invitation you extend to an internal seeker should feel and sound completely different from the invitation you extend to someone who is convicted. Remember, we're going for the same destination. It's just that we're at maybe a different entry point.
Yeah. Wow, that's great insight, Bruce. You never disappoint. Let me just tell all the viewers. What that's really great insight. external, internal, and the convicted seeker really gives us a good rubric, I guess, to begin to see where people are. Well, once your evangelist can read where someone is, the next question becomes, how do I actually extend the invitation in a way that honors that discernment? Well, let's make this very practical. Let's talk about how to invite. So one of the reasons believers hesitate to invite people to church is they overcomplicate it. They rehearse arguments in their head. They anticipate objections, even trying to pre-sell the experience before the conversation starts. And all that internal preparation can create a kind of pressure the other person may feel before a single word is spoken. So let's do our best to simplify. The core invitation is this: hey, our church is celebrating Easter in a powerful way this year. I'd love for you to come and sit with me. That's it. That's the invitation. There's no sermon, no sales pitch, no scripts, no theological preamble. Just a simple invitation from one person who cares about another person. The simplicity is not laziness, it's intentional. People are not put off by invitations, but I do believe people are put off by agendas. And so a simple, genuine invitation carries very little of either. Now, once the invitation is extended, your evangelists need to think pastorally about the barriers that might get in the way. So offer to sit together. Don't just hand someone a bulletin and hope they figure it out. Have service times clearly communicated so there's no confusion. If they have children, address that directly. Follow up with a text after the conversation so they have the details on hand. Look, you're not just inviting someone to an event, you're shepherding a decision, and decisions require follow through. So here's is how the language adjusts based on their readiness. For the internal seeker, it might sound like this: if you're ever open, I'd love for you to join me sometime. No pressure at all. For the external seeker, we might say something like, we're doing something really meaningful for Easter this year. I genuinely think you'd connect with it. For the convicted seeker, he might use language like this: well, hey, I really believe this is your moment. I would love for you to be at Easter with me this year. Do you see what's happening? Do you notice that it's the same invitation, but the tone, the weight, the urgency, all of it shifts based on where the person actually is. So this is not manipulation. This is wisdom. This is the difference between a well-meaning but poorly timed push and a spirit-aligned word spoken at exactly the right moment. The urgency that drives the convicted seeker conversation is worth naming clearly. The evangelistic gift does not operate casually. It carries a settled conviction that this matters, and that the window is real, and that later is not a neutral option. Urgency and pressure are not the same thing. Urgency says, I care about you, and I don't want you to miss what God is doing. Pressure, on the other hand, says, hey, I need you to say yes so I can feel like I did my job. Your evangelists really need to know the difference, and they need to be able to live in the first one.
Charles, man, you bring up some really important points there, and I think it's such wisdom in your words, especially on the relational side. We're not, there's the gift of the evangelist, but it doesn't come without the participation of those other necessary giftings, especially that pastoral gifting. That it's a deep relational investment that we're making in people, and so that relationship is a dynamic that you're just going to carry through the whole process. That makes it authentic. And when our leaders begin to operate this way with discernment and genuine relational investment, with the aligning of the Spirit's urgency, there's something that starts to happen that really goes beyond any individual conversation. So let's talk about what that looks like at a systems level. And so this is something we might call faith math or evangelistic multiplication. And so I want to begin here by talking about something that is not just theoretical, it's executable. This is something that happens in your system. Now run the numbers with me. Let's say you have 25 evangelistically activated believers in your congregation. These are people that feel passionate about reaching lost people, about reaching and showing the love of Jesus. This doesn't mean that they're operating in the traditional sense of the evangelist. It does mean that they've adopted a lifestyle of being evangelistic, of reaching others for Christ. So each one of them has been praying over 4 people for 6 weeks. They've been building relationships. They've been releasing compassion, and now ready to extend this aligned spirit invitation. That's 4 people times 25 active evangelists, passionate people in your church about evangelism. That's 100 intentional, personalized, relationally grounded invitations going out in the same 2-week window. That's not mass marketing. That's not a social media campaign. That's 100 moments between people who know each other. And if 40% of those people say yes, now think about this. If you have 40% of those 100 saying yes, the math is easy. You have 40 individuals walking through your doors on Easter Sunday. Now, I don't want to stretch this too far, but compound that 40 times not just individuals, but households of families. This is an Easter Sunday with people who've already had someone sitting next to them who've been praying for them for a month and a half. And that changes everything about what Easter morning feels like. Again, this hasn't been a time for a marketing campaign. We're talking about the work of the kingdom. And we're not just for the visitors. This has been a process that's engaged your whole congregation. But here's something more important than the numbers. This is Ephesians 4 in action. Remember, the first strategy of the evangelistic gift is not just reaching people, it's equipping others to reach people. That apostolic leadership, pastor, that you demonstrated, that was necessary. That was part of this process. And the evangelist, again, is training and releasing people in evangelistic strategies. The evangelist is just as much as an equipping gift for evangelism as the teaching gift for making disciples. And so when that happens, when you're operating as a leader in those veins, what happens is evangelism stops being the department of the church and it starts being the culture of the church. People are not wanting for the next outreach event, man. They're living it. They're starting to put into their lives behaviors that are essential to your church, reaching lost people in your community. Again, Charles, we call it creating those new pathways into a relationship with the Father for His lost sons and daughters in the community. And that's what your people are becoming. They're becoming those living ambassadors of Christ in their neighborhoods, their workplaces, their families. And it's happening in every week of every year, not just the 6 weeks before Easter. This is just a time where we're equipping and training and getting people into the habit, if you will. And what we're building right now, I know we've couched this in terms of Easter, but this is so applicable to any kind of big day oriented event. A strategy for praying for people, releasing acts of compassion, and demonstrating an incarnational presence in the lives of people. And what happens over time is we're building a muscle memory into that congregation that knows how to recognize when the Holy Spirit is moving, and then have the courage to move with it.
Yeah, man, that's so true, Bruce. And I really like the math that you're talking about, and I think about that. What if the 40%? What if those 40 people, excuse me, or 40 households? What if they come to the Easter service? Um, uh, that's phenomenal. And then, like you said, building this culture of evangelism. What if you do that 3 to 4 times over the year? What if you have 100, 125 brand new families come to the door, not just random people. And I'm not against uh, direct mail or Facebook ads, or we want to build the invitation culture. But what if you have 100 brand new families over the course of the year who are coming through intentional relationship, who are coming through prayer, who are coming through compassion, who are coming through gospel conversation, who are coming from a sense of care and love from that the church is extending to them. What if those families come? I just think it makes their journey toward Christ that much more meaningful, and I think it makes Jesus that much more accessible to the lost sons and daughters of God. And so, and you're exactly right. That building this culture where you're this is not an event. This is process. This is lifestyle within the life of the church. And can you imagine how the evangelists dream with me a little bit here if you're listening? How alive can the evangelists in your church become when a family, a household who they've been praying for, they've been talking with, they've been serving with acts of kindness and compassion, they've been inviting. When that day comes that this family surrenders their lives to Christ, how incredible is that for them? But what about your evangelist who realizes that I have this past, I have all this baggage, I have all these things that I've been holding on to, but yet somehow God has used me. God has, as I've made myself available to Him, God has worked through me, and now there are new people who have come to faith, who get to experience and who get to encounter the transformation of the Spirit of God in the same way that I'm receiving that. To me, man, that's life giving. That evangelism is not just something we're checking off on the box. This is a culture we're building, and and not that we want to reduce any of this to a number, like you said, but now all of a sudden we're dealing in multiplication as the faith math, like you said. I love that term. Really begins to work, and now what we're moving from is just a church that's sending out an invite, an invitation of desperation. We're just going to scatter the seed and come what may. Instead of now, we're being intentional, we're being relational. This is a spiritual process of discernment. And man, evangelism really is elevated. It's lifted. The gift of the evangelist, when it's activated through this process, really can lift the church. So
Charles,
I don't know
can
where
I
all
say
that came from, but but
Charles,
there it
let
is.
me, let me say one more. Let me say one more thing about this math. I'm a pastor. I know that it's necessary to leverage social media. I mean, people are on social media. If you want to reach some people, then you can reach them on social media at a level. But I really, this whole time, it's really made me rethink our budget as a church. And maybe what would it look like? This is a question I'm having in my mind. I would offer it to any of our listeners who are serving in church leadership. How much of your public relations budget would it make sense for you to shift toward this kind of a strategy with your people to build the behaviors of turning them into functional, working evangelists, people that are actively involved in the process? I would much rather spend money on helping our people become evangelists in the sense of I would rather put money toward people having conversations with women at the well than sharing a Facebook post. I would love to have that kind of behavior in our people. I think that's Christ. I think, Charles, what we're talking about in this whole strategy, it really is about people partnering with the redeeming activity of Christ in the world. And what better way than to sow that kind of behavior in your local community? again, what I love about our strategy is that not only is it repeatable, but it's scalable. This works at every church level. Obviously, every church at a church of 100 is very different in dynamics from a church of 1,000. But at the same time, these behaviors are scalable. These behaviors are Christ. These behaviors are, I think, in alignment with God's heart, regardless of the size of your church. And so I've really enjoyed this series, and to me, it's just been refreshing to think of how I want to lead my congregation.
Absolutely. Bruce, you're exactly right. This is universal. It works in large churches, works in small churches, medium sized. Man, you name the size. This is it's not a program. This is a culture building um, exercise. I'll tell you, my vocabulary is failing me right now. But it works. It works. And why does it work? This is why I think it works. It's because we're investing in people. We're helping we're doing exactly what Ephesians 4 tells us. We're equipping the church to do the work of the ministry. And
Yeah.
and again, I'm not against outreaches. We need to do outreach, but everything can't be outreach. We have to teach people how to be evangelists, how to do personal evangelism, and that's why I think this was so great because we're investing people, we're building people, we're helping to bring transformation to people through personal evangelism. So it works in any size church, but it also works in any context as well. Um, I've pastored in the city. I've pastored in the suburbs. I've pastored in rural settings, and, and it works. It works because bottom line, no matter how big or small a church, or no matter where the church is located, these are the gifts that Christ has given His church, and the gift of the evangelist is one of those. And we're teaching people we're activating the gift of the evangelist to help people function in evangelism. We're aligning ourselves, we're aligning the church with the active ministry of Christ. And I think God honors that. I think He blesses that. And so um, this has been a long way I think, for us to kind of say, don't pin everything on a marketing campaign. But do the work of transformation, do the work of building ministers and of cultivating evangelists in the church, and that there's a way forward. If you feel stuck, there's a way forward. It's going to require effort and work, but working with people is always challenging. But I think it's the best way because again, this is building culture, and it's helping move the church toward those divine God directed initiatives that He has for His church. So, well, any closing words on that, Bruce, or have we kind of beat the baloney out of that particular principle?
No, I'm highly optimistic. I think this has been a fantastic series, and I'd like to maybe leave our listeners with a question, and it's simply this: who in your life is closer to saying yes to God than you realize? And I don't mean to sound trite or anecdotal, but I want you to honestly think about the activity of God in people. These whole 6 weeks, Charles, 5 weeks, we've been asking people to partner with the Holy Spirit. And I think it's easy to get our eyes on what we do and neglect the thought that, look, the Holy Spirit is more ambitious about bringing people to faith than we are. But there's a divine partnership that happens. God doesn't need us, but He chooses to work with us and involve us. And so think about your four. Think about the conversations of the last 2 weeks, the moments where maybe some things began to shift and you actually began to see it. Or maybe that time someone said something that surprised you and it was a trigger. It just said, hey, this person is thinking a lot more about their spirituality than I've been led to believe. Anyway, where is the ground softer than it looked 6 weeks ago? A second question I would ask is, what would it look like for you to step into that moment this week? Again, not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but out of a genuine alignment with what the Holy Spirit is already doing. Let me add a word to that. Confidence. Confidence in what the Holy Spirit is already doing. Because, Charles, this is bigger than Easter attendance. This is about becoming the kind of person who consistently recognizes that heaven is moving, that the Holy Spirit is working in people. And it's just about us having the courage to move with it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and this is. I want to go back to a word you used when we began this episode. That this is a critical stage, the invitation stage in this process, and so. And here's what I want to encourage everyone today in this critical stage. As we're inviting, uh, yeah, that's the focus this week, and we're 2 weeks out. We want to begin the invitation, but don't stop praying. Keep praying. In fact, you might even want to intensify the prayer a little bit. If you're praying out of 5, turn it up to a 6. If you're praying out of 10, turn it up to a 12. I mean, just begin to take inventory of kind of where you are, and continue praying, continue the intercession, the discerning, continue the conversations with people, having those common ground gospel conversations where you're connecting the gospel to their life. Continue serving with acts of kindness, acts of compassion. Continue allowing the Holy Spirit to use you to soften the ground, and move into the invitation this week. This is a critical time, so we don't want to pull back with prayer, uh, conversation, and serving. We want to continue that to really support and undergird the invitation process. So as you move into invitation, don't withdraw from the other three activities that we've already talked about. But hey, if you're a pastor, a leader, a believer, and you're listening today, and you want help building this kind of culture in your church, not just for Easter, but as a sustainable way of life. I mean, we'd be honored to walk alongside you. You can connect with us at charlesrusselltraining.com, charlesrussellministries.com, or coachingcardia.com. We offer leadership development, evangelistic strategy, spiritual life coaching for fivefold leaders who want to build systems that actually bear fruit. Now, next
Charles, if I
episode,
could add something. Charles, before
sure.
you close us out, I just want to remind people that next month, in the month of April the 16th and the 17th, we're hosting Dr. Mike Harper from North Texas, and he's actually going to be helping churches learn this same pattern. He can present it in a dynamic way. And so, if you're interested, drop us a line. Let us know that you're interested in coming. We can get you information on how to be part of that training.
Absolutely. You will be blessed by Dr. Mike Harper's his teaching. Mike's not just an instructor. He's not just it's not just theory to him. He's a practitioner leading this kind of evangelism throughout networks of churches, and so and they're seeing tangible fruit as churches are growing and coming to life. So yeah, absolutely. Mark those dates. Join us. We would love to have you be part of the special time of training and teaching. So, well, hey, look, our next episode is our final installment. We're gonna contend, celebrate, and multiply. Look, you know it, I know it. Easter Sunday is going to be 1 week out, and we're going to talk about how to prepare your congregation spiritually for what they're about to experience together. How to celebrate well. How to ensure that what happens on Easter Sunday becomes the beginning of something and not the end of a campaign. So don't miss it. We look forward to seeing you right here next week on the Five Gifts podcast.
You've been listening to the Five Gifts podcast. If you would like to take the next step as a spiritual leader, we invite you to visit either of our websites or contact us for leadership coaching. We can help you reach the next level in your own growth and leadership. We provide leadership, spiritual gift, and personality assessments that give you a better grasp of your leadership style. And we also create a customized growth plan that empowers you to reach your full kingdom potential. We can't wait to hear from you.